From inspired use of CGI to small refinements which make the world more internally consistent. And yes, that Force Ghost. These 10 George Lucas Star Wars changes are not worth getting worked up about, because they actually all make total sense. I am Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 more Star Wars changes George Lucas made that were completely justified. Number 10. CGI Yoda The Phantom Menace. George Lucas's changes weren't just limited to the original trilogy. He's also gone back and made adjustments to the prequels on their more recent home video releases. Case in point, The Phantom Menace's 2011 Blu-ray release saw the puppets version of Yoda replaced with a digital double. While it's easy to appreciate why replacing the classic puppets with a CGI version would anger some fans, given how egregiously and arguably unnecessarily Lucas has done this in the original trilogy, in this case it actually makes total sense. As charming as the Yoda puppets might be in the original trilogy, it sticks out like a sore thumb amid the more obvious digital landscape of The Phantom Menace. Simply, it just doesn't look good at all, does it? The digital replacement actually looks terrifically detailed, and makes these scenes feel more consistent with the CGI Yoda used throughout Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So it's tough to get truly worked up about. Digital Yoda may still be fairly divisive among fans, but this is a rare case where Lucas was absolutely right to ditch the rather janky looking puppet. Number 9. Anakin's removed eyebrows, Return of the Jedi. When the original trilogy was released on DVD in 2004, Lucas decided to give Sebastian Shaw a digital shave for the scene where he portrays a dying, unmasked Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. In the original version of the scene, Anakin has big, bushy eyebrows. They're right there, you could not miss them. Yet given that we see Anakin get horribly burned beyond recognition in Revenge of the Sith, it just makes no sense for him to still have eyebrows. And so, some seamless CGI hair removal made Anakin's appearance more consistent with his fate in the prequels. While very far from a necessary change, from a continuity perspective, it's absolutely reasonable and about as non-sacrilegious as Lucas's digital changes get. But because Lucas couldn't simply stop there, he did also make some subtler changes to Anakin's appearance in this sequence, namely changing his skin color to a more ashen shade and tinting his eyes blue to match Hayden Christensen's in the prequels. Again, were you really that bothered by this alteration though? Probably not. Number 8. CGI ropes around Han's feet, Return of the Jedi. Lucas first began instituting significant changes upon his creations with the 1997 special edition re-releases of the original trilogy, but here's one that was actually totally worthwhile. In the original version of Return of the Jedi, Han hangs over the Sarlacc pit from a skiff in order to rescue Lando from the creature, yet it never quite makes sense how exactly Han is being suspended in the air. In some shots, it's simply not physically plausible for Chewbacca to be holding his legs, and yet there he dangles. For the special edition though, Lucas added CGI ropes which have been digitally tied around Han's ankles, explaining how he can be plausibly suspended upside down at all times. Though Lucas has made many objectionable changes to the Sarlacc pit sequence, namely making the Sarlacc more detailed and less mysterious, this one actually tidies up a slightly annoying nitpick, so it's tough to begrudge it at all. Han might be many great things, but he cannot just defy gravity whenever he likes. Number 7. Removing English text from the Death Star's tractor beam, A New Hope. Back when A New Hope was in production, Lucas hadn't yet settled on any consistent in-universe written languages, and so when Obi-Wan deactivates the tractor beam on the Death Star, its information gorge is initially very clearly in English. But in Return of the Jedi, Lucas introduced Aurebesh-like text which eventually graduated into a full-on detailed writing system in later Star Wars media. And so for A New Hope's 2004 DVD release, he decided to alter the tractor beam's gauge from English to Aurebesh. Again, this is hardly a change that any fan desperately needed to see, but it's one that nevertheless makes the world feel more internally consistent in a small but noticeable way. Today, seeing written English in a Star Wars movie sticks out like a sore thumb, so Lucas was smart to phase it out as much as possible in favor of the now firmly established Aurebesh. Number 6. The Stormtrooper head bump sound effect, A New Hope. One of the most iconic moments in all of Star Wars is of course the infamous beat in A New Hope, where a stormtrooper hits their head on a doorframe while entering the Death Star's control room. You're probably aware that it's a genuine mistake which accidentally found its way into the final film, yet the head bump has become such a legendary, even mythic piece of pop culture history in its own right, that even Lucas couldn't bring himself to erase it for the 2004 DVD. Lucas decided to add an audible bump sound effect when the stormtrooper's helmet makes contact with the door. 4, which really only makes the whole scene that much more hilarious. Sure, it transforms the scene from a subtler Easter egg into something more outwardly slapstick that everybody notices, but when you've got something this funny in the can, why not lean into it a little? More to the point, the sound effect is just so damn satisfying every single time. Number 5, the CGI ships taking off from YAVIN 4, A New Hope. The best Star Wars changes are those which Lucas simply couldn't technically achieve upon original release. At least not how he wanted, with time and budget constraints being what they were. And so the new CGI shots of X-Wings and Y-Wings taking off from YAVIN 4 and assembling in front of the Death Star during A New Hope's climax are tough to argue with, really. In the original version of the film, the ships were simply shown as tiny white blips in the distance. But for the 1997 special edition, they were gorgeously realized with impressively detailed up-close VFX. Which nevertheless still managed to feel consistent with the sequence's overall aesthetic from decades prior. It's the sort of change that's good enough to make you forget it wasn't there all along, which is really the ultimate compliment it can be given. Number 4, the new SANDCRAWLER shot, A New Hope. Here's a change that's so much more visually interesting that there shouldn't be any dissent about it whatsoever. And more to the point, it didn't involve Lucas using garish CGI to tinker with existing footage. In A New Hope's original release, the shot of the Jawa SANDCRAWLER coming over the rise on Tatooine looks rather flat and boring to say the least. A distant shot framed without much in the way of compelling motivation. And so for the 1997 special edition, Lucas decided to replace the shot with a better one. But rather than use CGI to recreate the SANDCRAWLER, he had special effects artist Lorne Peterson, who worked on A New Hope, return to help shoot a new shot. Moreover, Peterson was able to use the original SANDCRAWLER prop to reshoot the shot, which gets much closer to the SANDCRAWLER and allows the audience to see far more of its articulation, while also being framed in a more generally appealing way. This new shot blends in extremely seamlessly with the footage shot 20 years prior, and is about as close to being an objectively superior change as Lucas has ever made. Great stuff. Number 3, all the fixed matte lines. In terms of cosmetic changes which actually improve the movies, Lucas is more or less unimpeachable where the removal of matte lines is concerned. Matte lines are visible throughout the original trilogy, black outlines of objects which have been composited into other shots, making it obvious to the keen-eyed viewer that separate elements have been combined during post-production. Some examples of this include the speeders during the Battle of Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, and the Rancor and TIE fighters in Return of the Jedi. But for the 2004 DVDs, matte lines across the trilogy were given a welcome cleanup, with Lucas removing most of them entirely, or in the very least minimizing them to the point that they're scarcely visible. While few fans would outwardly object to the presence of the matte lines, this is an adjustment that nevertheless preserves and future-proofs the films in a non-intrusive way, as is all the more important where higher resolution releases are concerned. Yep, these movies looking sexy in 4K, baby. Number 2, replacing Sebastian Shaw with Hayden Christensen, Return of the Jedi. Take a deep breath as I make an argument for what's easily one of the most contentious and controversial changes in the history of Star Wars. Here goes. In Return of the Jedi's original final celebration scene, Luke sees the Force ghosts of Anakin, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, with Anakin of course being played by Sebastian Shaw at that time. But with Anakin being played by Hayden Christensen in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, Lucas opted to replace Shaw's Force ghost with a new Christensen version for Return of the Jedi's 2004 DVD release. Many objected to the sheer notion of the prequels creeping into the sacred originals in such an overt way, while some suggested it also didn't make much sense for Anakin's Force ghost to resemble his decades younger self. Yet the fan consensus has become murkier in recent years as the prequels have grown more popular, with many coming to defend the change. First and foremost, it can be said that Anakin quote-unquote died when he became Darth Vader, so it's certainly emotionally fitting that his Force ghost looks like his uncorrupted pre-Vader self. And beyond that, it provides a neat circling back to the prequels in the final moments of the original trilogy. Sure, digitally superimposing Christensen's head on top of Shaw's doesn't look perfect, but it's ultimately easy to appreciate why Lucas did it. And in the scheme of things, it's not nearly as objectionable as some fans insist it is. A little extra Christensen is always welcome. Number 1, the blinking Dianoga, A New Hope. Though many fans were horrified by Lucas adding CGI eyelids to the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, and honestly, who could blame them, there's another ocular-related change that actually makes a ton of sense. In A New Hope's iconic trash compactor sequence, Luke, Han, and Leia are briefly shown being observed and eventually attacked by a creature known as a DIANOGA. We see it pop out of the water and watch the trio with its large stalked eye, but for A New Hope's 2004 DVD, the DIANOGA was digitally altered in order to blink. In the original version of the scene, it was incredibly obvious we were looking at a not-so-great prop that didn't remotely feel alive, but adding something as simple as a blink immediately made the creature seem more tactile and present in the scene. Now it's a believable enough living thing, rather than just, you know, a big eye on a stick. So it's tough to begrudge Lucas this particular change, as minor as it might be. Those Ewoks though? I still have nightmares. And that's our list. Know of any other Star Wars changes George Lucas made that were completely justified? Well, let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if you like this sort of stuff, then please head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic Star Wars articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been the always changing Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always. Cheers for stopping by and watching this particular video today. Now go and check out some more on our What Culture Star Wars channel and have yourself the best of days. Bye bye!